What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over why you should stop using the twin hammer shotguns in Fortnite Chapter 7. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, comment down below if you've been using the twin hammer shotguns or one of the pumps, and if you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting anything. It is Evolved Jake, just like my channel name is, and it is underneath the webcam at all times. So you probably saw the title of this video and your first thought was, oh, they nerfed the twin hammer shotguns. No, there was no nerfs to the twin hammer shotguns. The iron pump did not get buffed either. The OG pump was buffed, the day it came back to have a higher max damage to kind of match the iron pump. But overall, there hasn't been a drastic shift in terms of like the balance of the shotguns. So you might think, why would I stop using this if they didn't nerf it? That would be the only reason to, right? It is still very good. It is still very lethal. But one thing that did change is the spray weapon that most players are going to be carrying, and potentially the weapon that you're carrying as well. Because for, pretty much the entirety of Chapter 7 Season 1, people were using their shotgun and then they were using the deadeye AR as their main spray weapon. But with the deadeye AR being vaulted, unless you're using the Enforcer AR or the MK, you're probably using a much better spray weapon now, because both the Hollow Rush SMG and Flex SMGs are very popular. And then even the, classic AR or SCAR is a lot better of a close to medium range spray weapon than the deadeye AR was. And so you have a lot of people carrying the Flex SMG, for example. Let's just take that. So I've been using Iron Pump and Flex SMG pretty much exclusively since this update dropped. And if you compare the close range killing potential of Iron Pump and Flex SMG compared to Iron Pump and Deadeye AR, clearly the Iron Pump and Flex SMG is much better up close, right? So it's going to be able to contend better with the twin hammer shotguns than, Pump Deadeye did. And that is kind of the main difference here and the main distinction. If you're carrying one of these SMGs as a spray weapon, you can compete a lot better with these twin hammer shotguns and not have to deal with, the downsides as much, because the iron pump has been good throughout this entire season. I've been maining it the entire time. It hits incredibly hard. It has very good range. And in my opinion, it's one of the more consistent pumps that we've ever had if your aim is good. However, Pump Deadeye, the DPS output on this was not that great at all times. You kind of had a mid spraying weapon in the Deadeye, but it kind of made up for it with medium to long range, right? And kind of the playstyle here was that like you needed to have early tags with the Deadeye to make the setup work. If a twin hammer shotgun user just jumped on you with full HP, it probably wasn't going to be a fight that was winnable for you unless they really messed up, because your killing potential up close wasn't as good as theirs. But Pump Flex SMG is absurd. You can hit one pump shot and then swap to the Flex and just finish the fight that way. Ideally, you would swap back and forth and get your timing perfect and just deal the most damage you can as fast as possible. But even just shooting one pump shot and staying on the Flex, you kill incredibly fast if you hit your pump shot. The Flex is absurd up close, and so this makes the Pump and Flex SMG combo a lot better and a lot able to contend with the twin hammer playstyle. And I feel like the twin hammer playstyle of just trying to jump on you is at a disadvantage versus the Pump and the SMG if your aim is good and if you use the weapons well, right? So that is the main reason. The popularity of the SMGs makes the Pump more usable in close range, or better able to compete with the twin hammers. And so there's not as much of just a guarantee that these are as good. And a lot of times with the twin hammers, you're going to be opting into a fight where I feel like you're actually at the disadvantage with a less kind of consistent weapon as well. Another thing is, if you're going to be using the SMG yourself, there's not as much of a need to kind of use the killing power of the SMG up close, because the twin hammers don't want to be swapping back and forth, right? But if you're using the SMG for your close to medium range weapon anyways, I feel like the Pump just slots much better into that slot. That way you get the, benefits of the Pump, and, you have the SMG for close range as well, so you don't have to worry about the downsides as much. I feel like explaining this is kind of hard, but just like Pump SMG, I feel like pairs better than twin hammer shotgun and SMG. You have a higher ceiling with the Pump, so if you're going to be using that spray weapon anyways, you might as well be using the Pump. That way you have a higher ceiling. And even if you don't like the Iron Pump, the OG Pump is pretty solid now as well. I think the Iron Pump is just better because it does have more range and they have basically the same ceiling damage wise. But if you like the OG Pump more, or it just feels better to you, then that is, again, I think going to be better off in close range than just the twin hammers would. if you are someone who's going to be using the MK or the Enforcer AR, if that's what you want to use as your, spray weapon with the deadeye AR being gone, it definitely makes a lot of sense to use the twin hammer shotguns. I think for sure those kind of pair well because the MK has terrible hip fire accuracy and then the Enforcer AR shoots really slow. So the potential's there, but like it's not very forgiving. So if you're going to use either of those weapons, I think you probably should be using the twin hammer shotgun as your shotgun. But if you're going to be using the SMG anyways, I think running the pump in the SMG has a much higher ceiling and is much more consistent than the twin hammer shotguns and is going to benefit you likely in the long run. Because I think for how this season played out for most of it with the deadeye AR being the dominant AR, the twin hammer shotguns were an absolute menace in close range fights. And it's unlikely that next season, the meta as far as shotguns go, stay the same. The kind of head of BR, Ted Timmons, has already confirmed that a majority of the loot pool is going to be changing, more so than we usually see season to season. So I think it is unlikely the twin hammer shotguns stay. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But if most of the loot pool is changing, it's unlikely the twin hammer shotguns stay, right? I also think with how this season played out and the way the meta played out, I think the twin hammer shotguns were set up for success a lot more than a lot of other spammy shotguns have been. And so I think it's unlikely the next spammy shotgun is as effective as the twin hammer shotguns were. So I think it's, it's not guaranteed we go back to a pump meta, but I think it's more likely that we do next season than we don't just because of the meta changing or like a majority of the loot pool changing. And so for that reason, I also think it would be beneficial for you to use the pump and kind of try to get used to it. The iron pump may change as well. But the playstyle with pump shotguns is something that is kind of the same season to season, regardless of which pump it is. You want to shoot the pump, swap to a spray weapon, swap back to the pump when it's ready to shoot again, and kind of alternate between your pump and spray weapon back and forth over the course of the fight. And this takes kind of muscle memory and like dexterity, I guess, with hitting your buttons, mostly muscle memory. Like you need to get in the habit of doing this and build that muscle memory. And so if you play, with pump spray for the remainder of this season, you set yourself up more to potentially being able to adapt to the meta changing next season. Because as I've already touched on, it's harder to go from a spammy shotgun user to becoming a pump user than it is from a pump user to the spammy shotgun. The spammy shotguns are usually just easier to use. And so even if you do kind of get used to the pump playstyle and you get decent with that, and then let's just say it's spammy shotguns again next season that dominate, it's going to be easier for you to adjust than the hypothetical version of you that just sticks with the twin hammer shotguns the entire time. Like I feel like there's not as much to lose and there's a lot to gain because we don't know what the metas of next season is going to be, and pumps are usually a bit harder to adapt to. And for the current game, I think the pump SMG is better anyways. Another thing is that, this season has been long. It's probably been pretty stale. And if you've been maining the twin hammer shotguns the entire time and haven't used the pump, using pump SMG can be something that can, freshen up the game for you and make this final week or so a bit more exciting to play and a bit different than what it has been the entire time. So if you have been getting bored or burnt out, switching weapons like this freshens it up. You build a different skill set and potentially help yourself, for future metas because, adapting to metas, I think, isn't very hard if you've played for a long time and you've played through different metas. But if you've just never, gotten used to using the pumps, it's going to be harder for you to do so. But once you've done it, it's easier to kind of go back to it if the meta does arise. So even if next season is a spammy shotgun meta, we will arrive at a pump meta at some point. And so I think now it's the best anyways. It's a good time to practice it because we're at the end of the season. You never know what the future will hold. But that is going to be it for this video. Just in general, I think the way the meta has shifted with the Flex SMG dominating has made the pump a lot better because it's better able to contend with the twin hammer shotguns than pump and deadeye did. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. As always, if you guys did enjoy this video, found it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.